You're here because you're curious, maybe even skeptical. If you've heard the hype around the glucose goddess method, you may be wondering, is this something that actually works? How does it work? And whether it's just another fad diet. I'm tired of fad diets, I bet you're tired of fad diets too, and it's not always easy to tell whether something's a diet. So in today's video, I'm going to go through what the glucose method is, who the person is behind it, and whether it is just another fad diet. Hello, my name is Aoife McMahon. I'm a weight inclusive specialist dietitian. Please pause the screen for disclaimers, and today there's trigger warnings for talk of diets, eating disorders, and disordered eating. Who is the glucose goddess? Jessie Inchauspé is the woman behind the glucose goddess method. She doesn't have any background in nutrition, but she does have a background in science, and she describes herself as a French biochemist and author. With 2.1 million followers on Instagram, features in magazines such as Women's Health, and as of April this year, she has released her second book, The Chart-Topping Glucose Goddess Method. It's fair to say that Jessie, the glucose goddess, has significant influence. Jessie's booming platform is built on her messaging and beliefs around the importance of glucose monitoring and management. Inchauspé claims that blood sugar management or glucose control is not just for people with diabetes, but for everyone. She claims that this kind of glucose monitoring and management can help with cravings, cut hunger levels, improve your happiness, improve PCOS, hormone levels, mood, fatigue, heart disease, and progression to diabetes, just to name a few. Sounds amazing, right? Before we go any further, let's take a minute to understand exactly what glucose is. Glucose is a molecule that we get from eating carbohydrate foods. There are two kinds of carbohydrate foods, starchy carbohydrates and sugary carbohydrates. Whether you eat a starchy carbohydrate like a bowl of pasta or a sugary carbohydrate like a cake, your body will break down that carbohydrate into glucose molecules. What happens to these carbohydrate foods once they're converted into glucose? Glucose or blood sugars enter your blood and result in, and I can't stress this enough, very normal blood sugar increases, or raised blood glucose levels. A hormone called insulin will come along and collect that glucose from the bloodstream and deliver it to your muscles and your brain for energy. Glucose is not a bad guy. Glucose is energy. Your body needs energy. Glucose is also the primary fuel for your brain, hence hunger when you don't eat it enough or eat it regularly. The human body requires glucose every single day regularly in order to function optimally. In the populations of people who have diabetes or insulin resistance, instead of the insulin being able to come along, collect the glucose from the blood and deliver it where it needs to go, the insulin doesn't work properly. It's not known yet exactly what causes insulin resistance or diabetes. One thing that's also important to note is that diet and weight are not shown in the science to cause insulin resistance or diabetes. In the case of people with diagnosed insulin resistance or diabetes, the management of blood glucose levels through the use of insulin injections, medications, and/or dietary advice is essential. However, this is not the case in people who don't have any diagnosed issues with glucose management or insulin function. Your body does that for you. What does the glucose goddess method entail? In her latest book, The Glucose Goddess Method, Inchauspé provides 4 simple hacks that are to be implemented over 4 weeks. These 4 simple hacks are savory breakfast, veggie starter, vinegar, and movement. Seems simple, right? The data pulled to inform Inchauspé's advice is from various different studies. Inchauspé also claims to have positive results from a pilot study that she conducted in over 2,700 people. Some of the results reported were 90% of people feeling less hungry all the time, 89% of people cutting their cravings, feeling more energy, happier, sleeping better, improved mental health, improved skin, improved diabetes, improved hormones, and 99% of people created habits for life. On to the golden question. Is the glucose goddess method all that it makes itself out to be? Is it a promising, revolutionary, and cutting-edge science-based simple method which has a phenomenal amount of positive results such as improved skin, improved hormones, improved PCOS management, reducing your risk of diabetes, improved mood, improved sleep, improved skin, slow aging, and improve your happiness amongst so much more? Or, now bear with me, is it yet another fad diet filled with false promises which are sold to you in an attempt to get you to buy into its unique yet ultimately ineffective method? Let's put the glucose goddess method to the diet detector test. The definition of a diet has 2 parts which need to be fulfilled. Number 1 is that it tells you what, when, or how to eat. Number 2 is that it promises a change to your body or wellness state that is not backed by evidence or science. For bonus points, I'm also going to be investigating whether the Glucose Goddess method increases your risk of disordered eating and food obsession. The Glucose Goddess method is based around 4 hacks: having a savory breakfast, movement, vinegar, and veggie starter. When we're looking at the first criteria to meet the definition of a diet, these so-called hacks do fall under the category of telling you what and when to eat. What, i.e. have a savory breakfast, have vinegar, and have a veggie starter, and then when being the encouragement to eat food in a particular order, i.e. having a veggie starter. These 4 hacks are not based on meeting your body's needs, such as satisfying hunger or satisfaction levels or meeting your taste requirements, but rather blanket advice. It was interesting to explore just how rigidly the Glucose Goddess talks about implementing these bits of advice. This is a quote pulled from one of her interviews. If you're going to have carbs, let's say I'm at a party and I'm eating a big slice of cake or something, and I can feel that it's going to have a big impact on my glucose. I just go for a walk, or I do 10 push-ups on the floor so that when the glucose gets into my blood, it's used by my muscles immediately. Messaging like this falls solidly into the category of encouraging eating disorder behaviors. One of the important tenets of a healthy relationship with food is the fact that it can be flexible and social and not dictated by rules. So if you're at a party and you're feeling the need to get down and do push-ups after having a slice of cake, that can be a real indication that you may need support with your relationship with food, and that needs to be taken seriously. I was really surprised and concerned that she spoke about food like this and discussed advice like this. In conclusion, in relation to criteria 1, yes, the Glucose Goddess method tells you what and when to eat, and it also does so in a way that is steeped in diet culture. On to criteria 2. Does the Glucose Goddess method promise a change in your body or wellness state? And is this supported by evidence-based or science? The Glucose Goddess claims to deliver on so many amazing health outcomes, such as improving your skin, your sleep, your mood, but does the science hold up? The data pulled to underpin the Glucose Goddess method is from various studies of various quality, none of which show the long-term impact of these so-called hacks on the symptoms that Inchauspé claims to improve. The thing that I also find interesting, if not a little bit suspicious, is the fact that this pilot study that she ran of over 2,700 participants wasn't anywhere to be seen. I wasn't able to see the raw data from this. From listening to interviews of Jessie Inchauspé herself, she claims that this was a survey which was completed each week of the 4-week method. Firstly, the fact that the data from this pilot study is not readily available is questionable, especially considering that Inchauspé herself has a background of science. The results that she reports, such as 90% of people feeling less hungry all the time and 67% of people feeling happier, a lot of these things are really vague. We're not given an idea, you know, like how did she measure happiness? She also states that 35% of people improve their hormones. What hormones do you mean? You know, is this hormones related to the reproductive system, or is it hormones like insulin? The other thing that concerns me about this pilot study is that it is extremely short term. It is 4 weeks long. When it comes to measuring whether a specific eating behavior or eating method like the Glucose Goddess method actually works, 4 weeks is an insignificant amount of time. You can't accurately base results from 4 weeks of eating a certain way. In fact, to accurately see whether people can even follow this diet, whether it's effective, we would need to see results for a minimum of 2 years. And given Inchauspé's background in science, I'm really surprised that she hasn't announced plans to start a rigorous scientific research study in order to demonstrate all of the amazing results that she claims that her method provides. I mean, if I was Jessie and I was seeing all of these amazing results, I would start a scientific research paper ASAP so that I could just demonstrate clearly, hey, look, this dietary method is amazing. It produces these results. So why isn't she doing that? Red flag. The other question that I have as part of this second criteria as to whether the Glucose Goddess method is a diet is whether it promises any change to your body. Inchauspé reports that weight loss is not the aim of the Glucose Goddess method, but it is often a byproduct. On the Glucose Goddess website, she states, but to many people's surprise, they actually lose fat while doing it, even though they are eating more than usual and not counting calories. Again, where's the scientific rigor? Jessie has a background in science. She's a biochemist. If there's weight loss results, why are these not reported? Why was this not included in the pilot study? What kind of weight loss was seen? Was it statistically significant? How long did people maintain their weight loss? You know, there's too much questions and not enough scientific evidence to kind of simply blasé say that weight loss is a byproduct for many people. And I can't help but notice that this allows her to kind of circumvent all of the talk about weight loss as a goal goal intervention while still subtly promising weight loss as a byproduct of her method. The final thing that I wanted to discuss is whether Inchauspe's language and advice encourages food obsession, disordered eating, and things like demonizing certain foods and putting other foods in a pedestal, right? So that's what we're going to discuss now. When I was watching Inchauspe's interviews, she tends to use a lot of catastrophic language around certain eating behaviors and outcomes. For example, she describes grapes as being deadly, like little sugar bombs. She also says, quote unquote, when you are tired, you crave more sweet foods. So this is like the combo of death. Another thing that I found really surprising was her approach to regular meals. Giving that savory breakfast is one of the things that she touts as being beneficial in the Glucose Goddess method. The way she eats is in conflict with this advice. Trigger warning, as this includes eating disorder, disordered eating, and diet talk. For me personally, I go through phases, so sometimes for months I'll never have breakfast. Sometimes for weeks I'll be doing one meal a day because it kind of feels right. Sometimes I just want to snack throughout the day. The kind of eating patterns that she's describing here does not slot into the Glucose Goddess method that she herself touts all of these amazing results from. And if someone was coming to me with those kind of eating behaviors, I would be highly concerned about their relationship with food. In terms of the risk of obsession about food, I think one of the really concerning things is that the Glucose Goddess method is built on the encouragement of micromanaging one singular food molecule, i.e. glucose. Whenever there is an encouragement to micromanage one singular food component or eating behavior, such as calories or gluten, we see an increase in risk of eating disorders and disordered eating. Even in people who need to manage their own blood glucose, such as in the case of insulin resistance or diabetes, there is a 10 to 20 times greater risk of eating disorders in this group. And it is thought that the requirement to micromanage eating behaviors and blood sugar levels is a direct link to this increase in eating disorders. The science does not support the micromanagement of blood sugars in people who do not have insulin resistance or diabetes. In summary, the scientific literature is quite clear on the negative impacts of dieting, and the Glucose Goddess method is not unique in that it claims not to be a diet. However, the Glucose Goddess method falls under the category of a diet. It tells you what and when to eat and is quite typical of other diets in that it claims to be really simple, but in practice you're being advised to do push-ups after eating a slice of cake. Secondly, it is not a scientifically backed method. The Glucose Goddess method is not a sustainable model, it has not proven to be effective, and it is a diet. I also have serious concerns about the impact that this diet will have. Inchauspe has significant influence, yet given the wide-ranging health claims and positive outcomes from the Glucose Goddess method, what we actually see in the science is that these things aren't really supported. In addition, the way that the advice is provided is entrenched in diet culture. The biochemist and self-proclaimed communicator is communicating this advice in a way that is more likely to increase your risk of disordered eating and eating disorders than to effectively micromanage a molecule, aka glucose, which, unless you have insulin resistance or diabetes, your body is well capable of managing itself. As an evidence-based practitioner, I will not be advising any of my clients to follow this diet, whether they have insulin resistance or not. If I'm being honest, this Glucose Goddess method and the micromanagement of glucose, aka a molecule that your body is well capable of managing itself, unless you have diabetes or insulin resistance, really reminds me of the gluten-free craze. Gluten is another particle in food which was encouraged to be micromanaged even in people who didn't have celiac disease. If you don't have celiac disease, your body is generally capable of processing gluten without your input. Your body is capable of processing gluten without you needing to support it. If you like this video, feel free to check out my video on whether sugar is an addictive substance, and also I appreciate any likes, comments, subscribes, all the good stuff. See you next time.